G'day golfers, I hope you're all well. Tonight we're going to be looking at what is required to hit the straight shot. Now, we're all trying to hit the ball straight, but all of us at some point or another we get confused about how we actually hit the ball straight. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you what is required to hit the ultimate straight shot. So the unrealistic straight shot, which we all try and attempt and we all try and perfect, but we can never get to because we're all imperfect. So you can see here on the diagram, I've used a simple protractor to draw a semicircle, and that semicircle represents the arc of our swing around our bodies. So this would be the backswing and the downswing part of our swing. That would be the bottom of the arc, right on 0 degrees there, and this would be the follow through. And down here we've got the target line, so that's where we're aiming, we're going this way. And down here you'll see the words neutral swing direction, which I'll explain in a second. And I've got my trusty Titleist Pro V1 here, #1 ball in golf, and that's got an arrow on it. So that represents the direction we're going to. So the unrealistic straight shot, which is the shot that we try and hit all the time, we try and perfect it, but we can't get to it, and we wonder why. So let's assume that this arc, and I've simplified things a little bit for everyone, this arc represents the downswing and follow-through of the golf swing, and the neutral swing direction down here is a concept that some of you may not have heard of before. The swing direction can otherwise be known as the swing plane, or the direction of the general direction of the swing from knee height to knee height, back and through. So you think about the club head swinging down past your right knee if you're a right-hander on the way down, going through the impact area and out the other side. That's the general swing direction. So that includes our arms as well. So our arms, obviously, if they're swinging from an in to out direction, we'll usually put the club on an in to out direction as well. So for this particular shot, we're going to be swinging neutrally. So the club is going to be going around us perfectly. Our arms will be going around our bodies perfectly. They won't be going to the left of our body or swinging away from our body to the right. They're just going to be going around perfectly. So what you see here is POI, which is point of impact, is the bottom of the arc, the bottom of the swing arc, so we're neither hitting down on the ball nor hitting up on the ball. So if we were to try and hit the unrealistic straight shot, you can see here our club head would come down here like this. It would hit the ball neither hitting up nor hitting down on the ball, with an iron, of course, at the moment. And we would have no shaft lean on the club, so the club would be neither leaning backwards nor leaning forwards when we hit. And then the club would exit and go round the corner to the left into the follow-through. And assuming that the club face was perfectly straight towards the target at the point of impact, very hard to do, the ball would go straight. So one of the things I want you to understand here as well is the term face to path. So that means that the club face in relation to the path was 0 degrees. It was perfectly square to the path at the moment of impact, which again is quite difficult to do. 0 forward shaft lean, 0 attack angle, which means we didn't hit down on the ball or hit up on it. And the path of the club head as it came into the ball was at 0 degrees. So it struck the ball exactly at the top of that curve there as it was going around our body. That, dear golfers, is virtually impossible to do more than once in your life, I reckon. I don't think you'd ever be able to do that on a consistent basis, and I don't think even a machine would be able to do it every single time. And it's a good point to note that Ben Hogan always said he always wanted to shape the ball with some sort of bias, left to right, right to left, so he had more control over the ball. Now, when we look at the unrealistic straight shot, we realise that #1, the 0 degrees attack angle isn't realistic, because when we hit an iron, we're always trying to hit down on the ball with an iron just a little bit, not steeply. We want to come down on it and around our bodies, not down on it down, but down on it around. And we want to be able to take a shallow divot after we hit the ball. So if we take a divot and we're hitting down on it, that means that we're hitting down on it from behind the bottom of the arc. So we're actually going to be hitting down on it over here somewhere. So the next slide, my beautiful handwritten slide, will show you this. We're also not trying to hit the ball with no degrees of shaft lean. We need the shaft to be leaning forward a little bit so that we can trap the ball and get a bit of penetration with our ball flight. The realistic straight shots. So you can see here with the protractor I tilted it slightly to the left. The reason I did that was to represent the fact that, in my opinion, if we're going to be hitting an iron straight, we want the ball to start on a straight line, we need to be swinging slightly to the left with our arms. And the reason that is if we're swinging slightly to the left with our arms and we have a bit of forward lean in the shaft, we can afford to swing a little bit left and still have the club head itself, not the arms, but the club head, coming down on a neutral path or even slightly to the inside. So it's really important to understand that if you're swinging left with an iron, assuming you've got some shaft lean and you've got the basics right, that you'll be able to hit the ball on a straight starting line, but with the arm swinging left. We need to do that in order to hit down on the ball and trap the ball properly and get the bit, the right penetration with our ball flight. If we don't do that and we don't swing to the left and we hit down on the ball, as we demonstrated over here on this one, the ball will start to the right and it will sail probably further to the right. But with this one, because we're swinging to the left now, we can afford to hit down on the ball a little bit, approximately 4 degrees of downward attack angle, and the ball will start straight. Now, if I happen to put my ball back in my stance a little bit, even more, and I swing down on the ball will start to the right, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. So in other words, there's 2 things that need to happen here. If we're going to hit down on the ball a little bit and hit it at 0 degrees on our little curve here, as the club head is coming around our body, we need the face to be square to the path of our club, and that will get the ball starting straight. If the face is open to the path, on a neutral path there, if the face is open, the ball will sail to the right. If it's closed, it'll sail to the left. Now, as quite often happens, PGA Tour players like to hit down on the ball and hit what's called a little trap draw. That means they're hitting even more down on the ball. They're still probably swinging to the left a little bit with their arms, with their shoulders opening up and their body going around. But the club head is now going a little bit more to the right than what other people might hit it. So therefore, if the club head's going to the right, the ball's going to start straight to the right, and it's going to stay sailing to the right unless they close their club face just a little bit to the path of the club. So they're not going to close it to the target line, because if they close it to the target line, the ball will start to go left of the target. So they want to close the face a little bit to the path of the club, but it won't be so close that it's closed to the target line. So I know that might sound a little bit confusing, but if you can imagine my trusty Titleist here, if my face was square to the inside out path, those lines there, then the ball would go straight right. But if I close the face just a little bit, like that, the ball will start to the right and then nicely draw back towards the target, but it won't go left of the target, which is ideally our aim. We've got the shaft leaning forwards, we're hitting down on a little bit, and that's probably another really reliable way of hitting an iron shot. So we've got 2 options. We can either hit down on the ball with the face square to the path, and we'll get a pretty straight shot, or we can hit even more down on the ball by putting the ball back in our stance, and that'll get the ball starting to the right, and then we can draw it back if we close the face a little bit to the path. That's really what we want to do. We can also fade it, of course, from a neutral swing path. We can fade it by simply opening the face a little bit on the way down. That'll get the ball starting straight and then curling to the right. If that's the sort of shot you want to hit, that's also very reliable. But what you need to do there, if you're trying to aim towards a flag, is aim your entire body a little bit to the left of where you want the ball to finish, and then hit what you would call your little push fade. So the ball starts straight and then drop to the right. That's also another very reliable way of hitting it. There's a number of players on the PGA Tour that hit it that way. Remembering all that we want to do is find some sort of reliability or repetition. So it doesn't really matter what you do, whether it's a trap draw, push fade, they're all perfectly acceptable shots. You don't want to try and hit a perfect straight shot because they're very hard to repeat. And quite often what happens is people that try and hit the perfect straight shot get what's called the double-sided miss. So the ball's either leaking a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, and that's actually less desirable than having the ball just curve one way repeatedly all the time. Now you can see here the third one that I've drawn is the outside to in club path with an iron. So that would be okay, but the only issue I have with that is that means the ball's probably too far forward in your stance. You're probably not going to be hitting down on it enough, and it means that as you're swinging down and through the impact area, the club's coming out the other side and almost hitting up on the ball with the face closing over. So the ball's probably going to start straight left and stay left. So that's just the straight pull that any right-hander would hit. Probably not really desirable, and if you were going to fade it from there, you'd have to keep the face open, but I don't think you'd be compressing the ball properly if the ball was too far forward in your stance. So we try and avoid that one. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there are trying to figure out how you'd hit a driver with this sort of mentality, and I'll show you. Here's the driver one, the Uboot Driver swing. So the Uboot Driver swing, so far as I'm concerned, is pretty much the same. Now what you want to do is start with the ball obviously a little bit further forward in your stance, which is fine, because we want to either hit up on it. Approximately 2 degrees upward attack angle is, in my view, more than sufficient, and that will send the path, the club head path, to the left. So I would still ideally like your arms and your body opening up, your arms swinging to the left of the target line a little bit, and the club head will come down on the downswing. It'll come around, it'll go past that bottoming out area, and then it'll start to rise up slightly, which is where you want to hit your driver. Okay, so the path of the club head will also be going slightly to the left, and in my view, if you want to drive the ball consistently well, all you need to do is just hold the face open a little bit on the follow through, and that'll get the starting line going a little bit to the left, and then the ball will fade beautifully back to the right. Now, there's also a school of thought out there that you could hit the ball at the bottom of the arc. I haven't got a problem with that. In fact, the average attack angle for a driver on the PGA Tour amongst all the players is actually 1 degree down. So all the players on the PGA Tour are actually hitting down on the ball on an average of 1 degree. That allows them to hit the ball much straighter. The longest drivers on the PGA Tour, though, of course, they're hitting up on the ball probably 5 or 6 degrees, sometimes even more. So they're hitting the ball about here on the arc. But they're also, conversely, swinging inside to out with their arms. So they're also going this way. So that means the path of their arms and the general direction of their body turn is going way to the right. And then what they do is they close the face over a little bit with their hands on the way through, and that gets the ball coming back to the left towards the middle of the fairway off the tee. But Rory McIlroy is a good one for that. If you watch him, he tees the ball up very high, has the ball a long way forward and then swings a long way into out and lets the club face close over a little bit in order for him to hit that high draw. So that maximises his distance, gets a lot of launch, but it's very hard to do consistently on a regular basis. So I hope that helps to clear up a bit of confusion about what the club head does and what the body should be doing in relation to the path of the golf swing. So we can always think about the path as the path of the club head, but the general path of the arms, I believe, should always be going a little bit to the left with the iron shots and the driver. And then ball position obviously differs from driver to iron. So once the ball starts creeping back in your stance a little bit, you're going to be hitting down on the ball more. And it's simply a case of understanding what type of shot suits you more. So whether you want to hit a little push draw with your irons or a push fade, either one of those is perfectly acceptable. But the whole idea of this presentation is to try and encourage you to shape the ball some way or another. What I don't want you to try and do is consistently hit the ball straight, because straight is not realistic. If you've got any questions, please give me a call, 0409 652 044, or you can send me an email at admin@samhingleyGolf.com. Have a great night. Bye.